Learning with Tici-Corner.
Track 16.
Do you work or are you a student? Why did you choose that course or job? What is the most difficult thing about your studies or job?
Sample answers.
Do you work or are you a student?
I've just finished secondary school. I got the best results in my year, so I'm hoping to get a scholarship to study English literature.
Why did you choose that course?
Because I love literature. I love getting lost in a book. I mean, it's a form of escapism for me. But I also enjoy learning about the historical and cultural contexts that influenced a work, and I'll have ample opportunity to learn about these things at university.
What was the most difficult thing about your studies?
At secondary school, the most difficult subject for me was chemistry. I can't stand science, and I would dread every lesson. I struggled in chemistry lessons, and I had to work really hard to pass my exam. For some reason, I just couldn't remember all those chemical symbols and equations, no matter how long I spent revising.
Track 17.
My dream job would be to teach children to sail. I have some qualifications, in skippering, for example, but it's very likely I would need more, such as a teaching certificate from the Yachting Association. I have some of the right experience in that I've been sailing a long time. I'm confident in handling a yacht, and I've dealt with many minor crises in my time, like getting trapped in storms and saving someone who'd fallen overboard. It's true that I've never taught anyone, but I don't think that would be a problem, provided I was given adequate training. I'm quite good with people and can explain things clearly. I imagine the job would involve encouraging youngsters to try sailing for the first time, and also teaching them that by working together as a team, they could discover they have hidden strengths. The most difficult thing would be having sufficient patience when the children didn't do as they were told. I suspect it would be frustrating if they didn't realise that the rules were there for their own safety. Why is it my dream job? It's my dream job because I love sailing. It's been my hobby for decades, and I'd like to work in a nice, warm climate where all I'd need to worry about was making sure I had suntan lotion on and enough to drink.
When did you learn to sail?
I learned when I was a small boy. My dad taught me as he was a very skilled sailor. He taught my brothers and sister too, and we're all very pleased he did.
Track 18. Education.
Do you think science subjects are more useful than art subjects? Are students mature enough to choose what to study themselves, or should their parents decide for them? In your country, does having a university education help you into a better career?
Motivation.
Do you think older or younger workers are more motivated? How can managers increase motivation among their workforce? Are people more motivated if their job involves helping others?
Sample answers. Education.
Do you think science subjects are more useful than art subjects?
I think they are more useful because they are primarily concerned with practical matters. If you study science, you might, for example, go on to have some kind of technical role in the production of a device, like a computer or a car. However, all great leaders have studied more arty subjects, such as philosophy, history, and economics. This makes them better leaders because they have an understanding of human nature.
Are young people mature enough to choose what to study themselves, or should their parents decide for them?
I think success in studying comes from being highly motivated to study a specific subject area. Therefore, the student should choose which subject they're interested in. By way of an example, I had a friend who studied science A-levels because his parents pushed him down that route, but he hated it and so didn't get very good results. He still graduated and managed to get a place at university where he studied law, and he became a top student because law was what he was interested in.
In your country, does having a university education help you into a better career?
Yes, it does, as all top companies recruit graduates for their top positions. Therefore, you get a better start. However, it's fair to say that a university degree is not everything, and it's what you do with it that matters. You can have a degree yet still get overtaken by somebody who isn't university educated, but who gets promoted over you because they work harder.
Motivation.
Do you think older or younger workers are more motivated?
Younger workers should be more motivated because everything in their job is new to them and therefore exciting, and they have to build their career, which is all ahead of them. Older workers have a tendency to think they've seen it all and very often just wait for retirement. I do know of at least one older person who's made a point of retiring on a high and is therefore highly motivated to get a project delivered to a very high standard before he retires. But no matter how fascinating your job is, when you reach the end of your career, I suspect you mainly focus on your impending retirement.
How can managers increase motivation among their workforce?
Allocating the right tasks to the person with the right skills, but making every task slightly different so that they learn every time. That can lead to an increase in motivation. It's about making the job interesting, but without drowning staff in too much new information each time. If they see that they can progress steadily and meet the challenges set, then they'll stay motivated.
Are people more motivated if their job involves helping others?
Although my job doesn't really involve helping people, just training them, I'd hazard a guess that youth workers, for example, find it very rewarding helping a young person to achieve their personal goals, or overcome a personal challenge. I can imagine, too, that it gives a counsellor tremendous job satisfaction to know that if they weren't there to listen to their patients' problems, things would probably not turn out as well for them. So yes, although it's impossible for me to know for sure, I'd say people with those kinds of jobs take more pleasure from their work and are motivated by something more profound than just money.
Track 19. 1,
Leader.
2,
Hotel.
3,
Production.
4.
Dessert.
Track 20. 1,
Interesting. Motivate. Seminar. Foreigner. Lecturer. Difficult.
2,
Prestigious. Frustrating. Redundant. Consider.
3,
Responsible. Experience. Security.
4,
Fundamental. Entertaining. Workaholic.
Track 21. Speaker 1.
Where I come from, it's almost always sweltering. Ours is an arid climate, and in most parts of the country, precipitation is very low. Can you believe that in the summer, the temperature can exceed 50 degrees C?
Speaker 2. Sometimes I feel like it's constantly drizzling here and it generally feels damp. In fact, right now it's pouring down. That does mean we have the most beautiful, lush, green countryside though, and the climate is temperate, so we don't suffer from any extreme weather, thank goodness. Speaker 3.
The weather here is notoriously changeable. People often think our country is very, very cold all the time, but ocean currents keep our climate fairly mild, considering the latitude. I don't mind our winters, which are bearable as long as you wrap up warm, but I don't like our summers because it never gets above 25 degrees C.
Track 22. Tell me about your country's climate. What's your favourite kind of weather? Does the weather influence your mood? Is it worse to feel too hot or too cold? Track 23. Tell me about your country's climate.
We have an extreme climate. Our winters are absolutely freezing, and our summers are boiling hot. That means that the people, the houses, the transport system, everything needs to be prepared to cope with every kind of weather.
What's your favourite kind of weather?
What I like most is hot, dry weather. I love being able to sit outside on a balmy evening with a drink, rather than cooped up inside like you are in the winter.
Does the weather influence your mood?
Yes, it certainly does. It's the rain that influences my mood the most. I hate it when it's raining. It makes me feel so down. It's hard to go out without getting soaked to the skin anyway, and the sky is so dismal and overcast. It's miserable.
Is it worse to feel too hot or too cold?
Well, I suppose if it's too cold you can just wear more layers. But nevertheless, I prefer to be too hot. At least it means the weather is good and you can always go for a swim to cool down. What I really can't stand is being cold and wet. That's the worst combination, and it makes me worry that I'm going to catch a cold.
Track 24.
My favourite season is most certainly the summer, which is officially from June to September. I say officially because the reality is that we generally get a very short summer, in that the weather is only really summery for a few weeks a year. The rest of the season merges with the others, being rather cold and rainy. The highest the temperature gets is about 30, and when it gets that high, people start complaining because they're not used to such heat. This irritates me, to be honest, because my view is that we so rarely have hot weather that we should just appreciate it and enjoy it when we do. In this country, and especially in my region, you can't rely on good weather in the summer. I've been to many outdoor events like weddings, concerts, barbecues and so on, where the organisers were optimistic about the weather, but where it rained non-stop. Of course, you can't blame them. If you can't organise an outdoor event in August, when can you? In the summer, I typically go abroad on holiday to places where scorching sunshine is practically guaranteed. This is because I'm a sun worshipper and like to get a good tan. Having sun on my skin makes me feel healthy, though I am fully aware of all the dangers associated with too much exposure to the sun. When I'm at home, I like to have friends over for barbecues, and we stay out in the garden all evening until it gets too chilly, or until it's time for them to go home. The reason summer is my favourite season is that sunshine makes me happy. It's a scientific fact that it releases endorphins. In fact, during the winter, many people in my country use light boxes which recreate the light of the sun. You have to sit and stare into the light, and it is intended to lift your mood. In the summer, though, you don't need such gadgets. You can just go outside, sit in the sun, and get a natural energy boost. It's wonderful.
Do you dislike the winter?
No, I don't. All the seasons have something to offer. In the winter, it's nice to snuggle up inside with a mug of hot chocolate.
Track 25. 1,
Bard.
2,
Bead.
3,
Bird.
4,
Board.
5.
Bood.
Track 26. 1,
Pat.
2,
Pet.
3,
Pit.
4,
Pot.
5,
Put.
6.
Put.
Track 27. 1,
Shot. Short.
2,
Cot. Caught.
3,
Slip. Sleep.
4,
Hill. Heel.
5,
Pull. Pool.
6.
Look. Luke.
Track 28. 1,
Skid.
2,
Pitch.
3,
Fool.
4.
Walk.
Track 29. The environment.
Are people in your country concerned about protecting the environment? Does the responsibility for protecting the environment lie with governments or with individuals? Does it help to educate young people on being green?
Pollution.
What effects does pollution have on the environment? Do you think we pollute more now than we did 50 years ago? What do you think will happen if we do not reduce current levels of pollution?
Sample answer. The environment.
Are people in your country concerned about protecting the environment?
To be honest, no. I think the middle and upper classes are more interested in earning as much money as they can in order to buy as much stuff as they can. And there are many people in my country who live below the poverty line, and they quite literally can't afford to worry about the environment when they're struggling to put food on the table and just survive.
Does the responsibility for protecting the environment lie with governments or with individuals?
In my view, the responsibility lies with all of us. However, individuals, at least in my country, aren't taking action of their own accord, and nor are businesses. They're just out to make a profit. Therefore, it falls to governments to force people to be more green. For example, by fining companies that release toxic waste into our rivers, or incentivising us to recycle.
Does it help to educate young people on being green?
Almost certainly it does, because it is the next generation who will have to take on the huge burden of saving the planet. This generation isn't doing enough and is too worried about money. So I pray that the next one will see the urgency of the situation, and the way to get them to see that is to teach them about the repercussions of a polluting lifestyle such as ours.
Pollution.
What effects does pollution have on the environment?
I hardly know where to start. Pollution in the oceans kills fish and so unbalances the ecosystem. Pollution on land means that whole areas become unfit to live on or to farm. Habitats are destroyed, which leads to the extinction of hundreds of animal and plant species.
Do you think we pollute more now than we did 50 years ago?
Well, yes, overall. I'd say, though, that richer countries pollute less themselves but export their pollution elsewhere, by which I mean that they consume foreign products that have a large carbon footprint. It has become fashionable to be green in wealthier nations, especially Western ones. So people make an effort to cycle to work and recycle their waste. However, it's quite a shallow attempt at being green, in my opinion, because they still live in big houses using lots of energy and go on holidays abroad, leaving a trail of pollution in their wake.
What do you think will happen if we don't reduce current levels of pollution?
I read an article recently that claimed if we don't change our ways, we will need a second planet to meet our needs as early as 2030. It's frightening to think that we're that greedy, and I'm sure I'm just as guilty as the next person. I do hold out some hope that things will get so bad that we will realise we really must act, and we will completely change our destructive habits just in the nick of time. If not, the planet will surely become uninhabitable.
Track 30.
My mother tongue is Hungarian. It is spoken in Hungary, and it is a minority language in the surrounding countries, especially Romania. It is not part of the same language family as European languages like English, French, German or Russian. It is a Uralic language, distantly related to Finnish and Estonian. Because Hungarian is not a widely spoken language, if you want to get on, you have to speak a foreign language. Unsurprisingly, the most popular second language among Hungarians is English, the global language. Like most of my friends, I am multilingual. As well as Hungarian, I am fluent in English and German. I can also get by in Italian, and I did an evening course in Spanish a few years back, but I'm a bit rusty now. I seem to pick up languages quite easily, helped, I'm sure, by the fact that language teaching in Hungary is so good. It has to be, given that no one speaks our language but us.
Track 31.
What's your mother tongue? What other languages do you speak? What do you think is the best way to keep in touch with friends? Do people keep in touch differently now compared to 50 years ago?
Sample answer.
What's your mother tongue?
My mother tongue is Portuguese. It's predominantly spoken in Brazil, but also in other parts of the world, such as Portugal and Africa.
What other languages do you speak?
Although I grew up in Brazil, I can also speak Italian because my mother and one set of grandparents are Italian, and I grew up hearing the language all around me. I'm really proud to be bilingual, and I'd like my children to be bilingual too.
What do you think is the best way to keep in touch with friends?
It depends how far you are from your friends. If you are geographically close, you should meet up face to face. Long-distance communication can cause misunderstandings and resentments to build up. When you write, you only have the words on the page, not body language or tone of voice.
Do people keep in touch differently now compared to 50 years ago?
Well, of course. People use the internet now and mobile phones. I'm quite young, but even when I was a teenager, nobody in my friendship circle had a mobile. Now it's seen as indispensable, and you would feel left out if you didn't have one. But, as I said before, I think it's better to meet up with friends than to communicate using technology. There's much to be said for communicating in so-called old-fashioned ways. Track 32.
A language I would like to learn is Spanish. It's used not only in Spain, but also in many other countries, and I believe it's one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. So it's a language that is definitely worth knowing. It would be useful to me for business purposes. Also, Spanish culture is becoming more and more influential internationally. It is, for example, overtaking English as the most widely spoken language in certain parts of the USA. It is influencing music and art. So all in all, I think it's a handy language to know. I doubt it would be too challenging for me to learn Spanish because it is a Latin language, just like my mother tongue, French. I think Spanish vocabulary would be easier for me to acquire than Spanish grammar. I understand the grammar is one of the most difficult things about the Spanish language. I would use Spanish primarily when going on holiday. I've been to Spain many times, and I always find that if you go off the beaten track, it's difficult to find people who speak English. You get very good at speaking with your hands, and it's difficult to really engage with people and understand the culture if you don't speak the language. Speaking Spanish would undoubtedly make my holidays a lot easier and more enjoyable. On top of that, the company I work for has an office in Madrid, and it would also be very interesting to be able to work there. I would enjoy the challenge and the exposure to a new culture. It would be such an exciting opportunity. To make the move, though, I'd obviously need to be able to speak Spanish. Luckily, my company would most likely sponsor me to have Spanish lessons.
Where have you been in Spain?
I've been to Spain many times, and each time I did a road trip. One trip was in the north of Spain, travelling from France across the Pyrenees, through the Basque country and all the way down to Madrid.
Track 33.
Pa. Apart. Pop. Ba. Buy. Bob. Ta. Tongue. Taste. Da. Do. Did. Ch. Mature. Church. J. German. Judge. K. Korean. Clock. G. English. Gig. F. French. Tough. F. Fire. Revive. Th. Think. Path. The. This. Smooth. S. So. Success. Z. Easy. Zeros. Sh. National. Spanish. J. Television. Leisure. M. Men. Mime. N. No. 9. Ng. Sing. Language. H. Hear. Perhaps. L. Laugh. Lull. R. Russian. Rhetoric. W. Whisper. Well. Y. Use. Few.